to the acting city manager.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Beverly Tickey, who's our deputy finance director, to come up first and just go. You have a budget summary, many of you have in front of you, and talk a little bit about the budget summary. Then we'll go through some of the departments, if you have questions there, and then lastly, we'll talk about the disaster recovery fund that we just set up this year. Okay?
So I think I did a summary at the beginning of the mid-year budget, and all of the detail is behind that. But the summary I sort of grouped by the type of revenue or the type of service, so that you could see where the major changes were. So if there was a large change in one of the revenue sources, then I've listed that separately, so you could kind of see where the changes came from and where they went. And then the general fund, I guess the first thing that was a major change was in permits. Of course, we had a huge increase in the number of permit sales and the revenue related to permits. And overall, our revenue went up by almost $700,000, most of it being permits. And overall, the expenditures were reduced by about $5,000 something. And so the difference between those two went into the fund reserve. Went into fund reserves, so that will go to increase fund reserves. So the 592 right above the total general fund expenditures is the increase to fund balance due to the amendment. And these are just this isn't the budget numbers, it's just the change. But it kind of shows you where the changes are. We had a lot of differences in salaries because we moved so many staff around, and we had tremendous amount of overtime due to the hurricane. And so that's why I broke down the salaries and the overtime and the benefits, because they were sort of very large changes in the general fund. And the community development fund didn't have a whole lot of changes, and we didn't really increase, or, well, I guess we did increase the amount that was expected to go into their fund reserves by $18,000. I guess you wanted to go over the disaster recovery last. That's a budget that was added. And I think that's a budget that is going to be sort of an in progress budget, because we are don't have details concerning the bonds and some of the reimbursements. So that's subject to change, but at least we have a baseline established for the disaster recovery fund.
Time out for just a second.
Okay.
So the disaster recovery fund, we're going to go over this at another time, right?
No, well, Vicki wanted to do it last, I think.
At the end.
Through
Okay.
all of the funds, and then we'll talk about that one in the end.
Perfect.
But that'll probably be the longest one.
Okay. And then we have the 4 enterprise funds listed: water, sewer, sanitation, and stormwater. And the charges for services for the utility funds decreased quite a bit. So we tried to decrease some of the expenditures too. Some of the capital projects we were going to do, that we will not be able to get to this year, we decreased to so that we wouldn't have to take that hit against the revenues out of fund balance. I did make one change to the sewer fund, because we had some capital projects for $495 since the draft was distributed, for $495,000 that we took out of the budget because we're not going to be able to get to that capital project this year. So that decreased our use of fund balance to 310,000, and it was I'm not sure what it was originally, 790,000 or something.
805.
Right, okay. So there's been a few drafts, a few different drafts. So the amendment does increase the use of water fund balance by 764,000, and increases the use of reserves in sewer by 310,000. In stormwater, we don't really have an unrestricted reserve amount to draw from, so we just had to reduce expenditures in the same amount that we expected our revenues to be reduced. But we did add an additional amount for a DOT project, 17th Street storm drainage. I think it was originally at 750,000. It was increased to $1 million. And the sanitation fund, we budgeted to use 289,000 in reserves. And then on the detail, it just lists all of the accounts for all of the funds and the amount that's changed and the remainder. A lot of the changes were based on, instead of how much we used during the first of the year, it's kind of how I usually do it, say, we'll use this the first of the year, we can expect to use the same amount for the second half, and so that's not going to work this year. So I just estimated how much we're going to spend until September through the end of the year, rather than kind of did it backwards instead of going forwards. Like for the utility revenues, I took the month of April, all our billings for the month of April. We had 5 more months, and I took the actual revenue we had for the first of the year, and then added those 5 months based on what we did in April. So there could be some changes. I think we have some apartment buildings that are coming back on, and but there's a lot of changes, and it's kind of constant right now. So this could be, it could be subject to change, but it's the best estimate we have currently.
If I may ask a question.
Mhm.
Beverly, I'm going back to something you said a few minutes ago. Under the sewer fund, the project for $495. What project was that? That we're not doing it right now. It's going on to next year. Which one was that?
I think I have notes for that. Let me see. It wasn't a state revolving fund loan, or it wasn't a grant loan or anything. It was something we were going to do out of the fund balance.
Was that the wastewater?
Greg,
It was.
That was a upgrade for lift station 4. That's the little can station that sits down there right there on Highway 77. It's the old pipe where it's a dry pit, wet pit installation. Is to rehab and modernize that thing, and to build in some hardness to it. We did all that pre-Michael. Everything got put on the hold after that, so that's why it's in the budget. Yeah, it's what,
Thank you. And the other question I had, you made mention 17th Street project that was going to be 750,000. Now it's $1 million. Do we know why? And this might not be a question for you. How did it go up $250,000?
this is actually 17th Street Ditch Project. It was a JBA between FDOT and the city of Lynn Haven. So they originally were going to give us $750,000, and then they came back and they were going to give us $1 million, and all of that is reimbursable. And so I think right now we have put in for a reimbursement of about $586,000 of that. So that's the reason there was an increase.
And 592,000, and we just got it a day or two ago.
592, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I will just wait for any questions.
You know, actually, I do have one more question I want to throw out there at you just for clarification. The money that we have spent over the last 7 months, those numbers, you haven't put those over just in our disaster recovery fund. They've affected every number across the board. It's every number skewed, in other words, due to the disaster, correct?
Well, that they
So in
have.
other words,
They,
every part's moving still. Is that-
yeah, yeah,
that
they
correct?
have, and I think, I mean, a huge amount of those numbers, of course, were expended in the disaster recovery fund, and there's some questions that some things I wasn't real sure of on the FEMA reimbursements, for instance, like all the extra overtime that we spent. If
Sure.
we were going to do a transfer back into the general fund to make up for
Right.
that the hit to our regular funds because we left all the personnel expenses in the regular funds,
Right.
and the disaster recovery we just have the contractor and supplies and service
Okay.
fees.
So to make sure that we're not delineating between storm expenditure versus normal Lynn Haven city expenditure, right? We're not, in other words, if you go to your desk and you sit down and someone says, okay, we got to fix, Florida Avenue drainage or whatnot, and it was due to the storm. We're just pulling the money out to fix it out of the budget. We're not actually saying, okay, this is possibly reimbursable money from FEMA.
Now, if it was possible reimbursable money, we put it in the disaster recovery fund.
But we are looking at every type of project, and if we say it was from the storm, then we're going to tag it as a 101. That's a hurricane disaster relief fund, and that invoice goes into that pot of that storm or that part of the budget, and then we get reimbursed for that. So everything that's storm related, we have to tag it storm related so that we can get reimbursed first. In terms of the overtime, right now we are still talking to FEMA about how much of that they will reimburse us for, and that's going to be a long process, simply because every single timesheet must be copied, approved by Tetra Tech, and then they will decide how much of that will be reimbursed to us on the overtime
Okay,
side.
so if in your opinion, if the federal government comes out, well, now I guess 10 days, because there's another great guy up in Kentucky that stopped us, but if in 10 days they get up and they vote and they say, okay, we have this disaster relief bill and Lynn Haven is getting X amount of dollars, will that change nearly every number on this report? In other words, will the 101s that were designated as
No,
storm?
no. I mean, anything that we could be reimbursed for either by insurance or any other
Right, but we know where that's
that
going.
was just storm related, we put in a separate fund.
Yes, we know.
Just making sure we know what's what.
Exactly, and that is if you'll take a look, and we said we were going to talk a little bit about the disaster recovery fund. That fund was set up so that we could track and see our expenditures and actually what was coming in. So if you kind of look at some of the detail and just look at the budget itself, what's going to go in this fund in terms of revenue. Our reimbursements from FEMA, absolutely, those are going to go in there. Our insurance money, all of that money will go in there. Our bond money, this is our revenue driven. Our community disaster loan, that will go in this fund. Anything that's revenue and that's storm related will go into that fund, and then we will be able to track it better as we put it in there.
And I think it's as we learn more, this fund will be subject to more change than the other funds.
It's very fluid right now.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. So was that anticipated in the projected fund balance of 93019, the 3.9 in the general fund, is that accounting for possible reimbursements, or is
It
that?
is not. I didn't put the possible reimbursements in there because I just didn't have enough information on that.
Thank you.
About the entire budget or about just the sum?
Down about anything. Yeah. Anything. Commissioner Russell, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for filling in for
No problem,
me.
and I'll turn the meeting over to you now.
I don't mind if you want to continue. I appreciate you doing that. And I do apologize for being late. I overscheduled myself and made a mistake in the time, so I do apologize to everyone here for my tardiness. I just wanted to make one comment about how the money is categorized with the disaster funds, sewer funds, stormwater funds, all the different things that you see on the sheet. We have had a FEMA representative with us from day one, just for the sake of people who are new on the commission and maybe people who haven't been in those meetings. And not only myself and others on the staff were present for those meetings, but many of the department heads who are here today were present for many of those meetings. And Jay Moody, who is has been a financial advisor consultant to us through this entire process, was also a part of this. But we did follow direction given to us by FEMA as we proceeded on how we should categorize the funds and how we should proceed. And the city has been very diligent in doing that. And so I just wanted to point out that this wasn't just something that appeared or it wasn't our idea, but it was something that we did under the direction of FEMA on how to separate these funds and categories, and that they would remain fluid and probably will remain so if you think about the fact that at first we had 10 days of 100% reimbursement, then the president decided 45 days, then it was 180 days, and now it's 90% that will probably go back and be retroactive. So there's so many things that can happen. The president could even give us 100% reimbursement, which would be wonderful, and this disaster bill might actually pass. And so there's so many things that can make this change, and so just wanted to point that out. And then I would make one more suggestion for the sake of everyone here. Usually in these budget workshops, what's been done in the past, and I think that it works very well, is we don't necessarily have to go through page by page, but we could go through by topics, we could go through by page, or we could just stay like we are and ask general questions. It just depends on how much understanding there is on this board and what questions need to be asked. So if I could have some discussion or direction of how you would like to proceed, if you'd like to do it page by page, if you'd like to do it by category, or if you'd just like to ask random questions, someone.
I'd like to go by category if that's possible.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Anybody have a different idea or objection to that? So I think category. So in my tardiness, I assume that we've gone through the amendment summary. Do we need to talk about it anymore, or is everybody good with the amendment summary?
I was just gonna say, I guess in response to the question of how the hurricane expenditures have affected the general expenditures, it's something, if we had planned to replace or redo, like we planned to do a fence or a couple fences for a water and sewer plant, but if we had planned to do that and we had it in our capital, and the hurricane wiped the fence out, then it's kind of to our advantage because we're not going to do that capital project anymore because that'll be a reimbursable project because it was destroyed. So I guess it, does have an indirect, everything is going to have a little bit of an effect on the other funds.
Commissioner Aldridge was just pointing out to me that we hadn't gone over disaster recovery fund. Is that what you were pointing to? And he would like to talk about it. Did you have a particular question about it? Go ahead if you do, please.
Well, I just know that was going to go last. I didn't know if we're doing that after the itemized or that was last on the general.
I don't think the commission has the pleasure of how to discuss it. So just if you think it would be more productive to wait until we finish the other part and come back, or if you'd like to talk about it now, whatever is the pleasure of the commission.
Let's go ahead and look at it.
Okay,
That's the interesting part.
okay.
Can you direct us by page?
I think it's on page 4.
So we're on page 2 right now,
Oh, okay.
disaster recovery fund. I'm sorry, Commissioner Tender. And the workshop is a bit more informal than the commission meeting normally is. And so, you know, we want to speak in order and orderly, but at the same point, we want it to be a discussion and we want it to be productive. So
The details are on page 12.
So we're looking at both page 2 and page 12.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Just a quick question. I asked Ms. Gainer this, but I just want to verify. In the amended column, you got some black and blue. That's just there's no distinguishing between it. It's just some are blue and some are black, just because that's the way they printed.
That was sort of a note to myself.
Okay.
Because most of the blue ones I did, and most of the black ones I got from the department heads.
Thank you.
Other questions?
She's expecting page 12.
You mind, can we just go down through this kind of like we did those other sections and just kind of break it down if you would? That'd be
Okay. Well,
beneficial, I think.
yeah, a lot of this gotten from meetings and discussions and or actual revenues, but of course we had no budget for this. And the first grants from other local units, we had a rural water association grant. I guess Greg might tell you more about it, to reduce some wells, emergency grant for $30,000 that we got in December.
Correct. The Florida Rural Water Association, it's a statewide organization, part of a national organization. They pulled some money together and helped fund our well motors that we had to replace.
And then we got a check from Bay County. I guess Bay County does the admin for the Triumph Fund. So the $386,000 was our estimated ad valorem loss. And they
I don't know where you are now, Beverly.
it's on page 18 on the second.
Okay, we were on 12.
Oh, 12. I'm sorry, 12 of 18. Sorry.
Okay.
It is
Beverly,
12.
you-
It's just a second line item.
I think theirs may be a little bit different. If you may have page either 17 or 18 there.
Oh, you know what? I bet it is. I'm sorry. It's the first page of the
So
disaster recovery. Is it page 18?
Page 17.
page 17.
I apologize.
So Mayor, when you look at the FEMA reimbursements there, that is a combination of 9.9 million that we anticipate coming in. We know that the 4.9 is going to come in pretty quickly. We're just anticipating that any day now, and then we still have another 4.9 that's going to be coming in. 8.1 million that we've already pushed through, and then we have another 6.1 million that we will also push through. And that's not to say that all of this money will be in on this budget year. This is what we anticipate, but it may actually take longer than that. But we wanted to actually put it in here for you to see. This is just some of the revenue that might come in from FEMA before this budget year ends. So we put in there also the state legislative road repairs. That was some money that we anticipate we will get $1 million for road repairs. And then we have the SRF emergency funds. Those funds were actually, we had those funds approved pretty much right after this storm. I think it's $1 million is for sewer, and then $600,000 is for water. And so we're using those funds as well. Any questions before I go into the next part?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment, and also for the sake of media and for those who are listening, Lynn Haven has had the largest reimbursement given to this city of any city or the county since the storm, and we've not really gotten that coverage through media, and so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. we received the largest single reimbursement so far and are anticipating more. So we're very, very proud of that, very proud of the diligent work done by the staff to get that reimbursement. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I ask you the debt proceeds and insurance proceeds? I guess I'm not familiar with the verbiage. I mean, I have accountants, but I've never heard of proceeds. What?
Well, the insurance proceeds are, the actual amounts were, 120,000, that's for loss of cars and loss of,
Was debt proceeds and debt
structures.
expense?
Debt proceeds are, no, that's for the bonds we're anticipating.
Okay, so it's
And it may not
anticipated
be-
amount. Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, and I guess with the governmental funds, you usually, account for those on the current resources basis, so you look at what your sources are gonna be during the year, and then what your uses are gonna be during the year. And, the accounting for it is a little different. It's more like a cash basis accounting than a, regular business accounting.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So that's why we're calling the debt, revenue,
Yeah, that threw me off.
So,
Like
yeah.
that. It's never.
and which is confusing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions under disaster recovery fund? And we're looking at pages 17 and 18.
Margo, excuse me, are you asking if anybody here has questions, or you're just dealing?
At this point in time, and I'm not doing any public comment right now because we have 2 new board members and I want to make sure we have time to cover everything. But I anticipate that we would have time at the end for public comment. Thank you. Are we ready to move on? Or we just need a little time to look? Okay, let's move on to the water fund then. Questions?
And again, what page are you on?
We're on page 2, halfway down the page, water fund, and it's in gray if you're in, or blue if you're in the color form.
Yeah, we hit the water fund. Didn't we? Did we hit the water fund?
Okay, I was thinking when you said this one that we hadn't finished that page. Okay, then moving on to page 3, sewer fund, have we gone there?
I think we're done with everything.
Stormwater sanitation, okay, so then we're moving on then to page 4 to general fund, is that where we would be now?
General fund, she talked about that at the beginning.
Okay, somebody help me out where we need to start.
We've covered all the summary.
All the summaries we have covered, we just
Okay.
haven't gone through the items itself.
We haven't done any questions, of course. Okay.
One summary next.
Which one?
Community redevelopment agency fund summary.
Okay,
Nobody's touched that.
if the public would not speak without being recognized, thank you very much. No offense, but it's not the way we do it. Thank you.
Yeah, so there wasn't, a significant amount of change in that budget, but we did get, 24,000 more in ad valorem tax from the county than we expected. And, a few of the expenditure line items were adjusted, the remainder was, put into an increase in fund balance for CRA.
So the majority of that's going into the reserve fund.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wanted to ask a question. Are we on page 4 now?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I've been pushed back a couple times.
Can I see I just have a question on this item. Can I take us down to, 1, 2, 4 from the bottom where it says alcoholic beverage license tax?
Okay,
Can somebody explain that to me?
We get, portion of the tax collected to have an alcohol license. We get that from the state. We get the majority of it once a year, and then we get very small amounts quarterly.
Okay, thanks.
Other items on page 4. Then moving on to page 5. And if I go past something and we need to come back, we can do that. Okay, so we're not done with page 4 forever if you suddenly think of something there. We're on page 5 now. And I'll move on to page 6.
The change in general salary employees of negative 95,000. I'm assuming that's because we've lost some employees.
Just go to the line item for everybody, please, so everybody knows where we are.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's salary. It's under executive salaries / general employees.
Thank you.
There's a negative $95,000 change to the budget.
Well, we originally budgeted for an in-house attorney, and we had it in that category, and we don't have that employee anymore. And then we had also budgeted for an additional project coordinator that is not here, and a partial amount of the city manager's salary also came out there.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
So then that answers my second question on page 7. The $125,000 increase in legal.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I may speak to that for just a moment, because the board did vote, I kind of still feel like I'm talking about AD and BC when I say before the storm and after the storm. But before the storm, when the board did decide on an in-house attorney, Kelly Tran was to be functioning as our city attorney at a great cost savings to the city. And she would be mentored, and our present consultant was acting as mentor at that time. Because Tyndall was so devastated, her husband was deployed, and so under the Florida statute, she was not permitted to continue on with what she was doing. So, and then some other factors entered in, and so that's why she decided to leave. And they were of personal nature, family with military and all the things that are going on right now. But we still have, in effect in the city that we would have an in-house attorney. We're very grateful to Adam Albritton for his leadership during the storm and at this time, because he is so familiar with what we've been doing and all of the ins and outs with FEMA, because he's been there from the beginning. We are continuing on an indefinite basis, and then at some point we will probably go back. We'll have at least a discussion and decide whether we want to retract to go forward. But at this point in time, the city still has an effect that we were going to have an in-house attorney. So I didn't want everybody to think that just went away after the board decided upon it. And that's all I want to say. And I do thank Adam Albritton with all of my heart for all that you've done during this time, because you've been invaluable. Shall we move on to page 7? We already had a little bit there.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another one then. Under comprehensive planning, salary, general employees, the $50,000 increase. Are we doing that because we're anticipating having to bring the permitting in the house completely?
No, that's not in there. That is the addition of a code enforcement officer and a sign puller. I think for a code enforcement officer training. It's an addition of 2 employees.
Okay, so we're most likely going to see a pretty significant change with that if the commission
Absolutely.
decides to bring that in.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
there anything else on page 7? Moving to page 8, we're looking at public works and debt service and payments. Okay, I'm just going to start moving forward. If I go too fast, just stop me. Page 9.
Under the administrative support drop buyout incentive, we've got a complete change of 190,000. We assume that's mean we decided we're not going to offer any drop buyouts.
We actually did have a 3-month benefit for the people that retired earlier, but it was charged to the department and the salaries of that person. We didn't take it out and put it in a different account. We just charged it.
Each different department.
Hmm?
Each department.
Yes, each department that.
So then is
had
this, did this 190,000 get shifted back to the departments, or is this just disappeared?
I just took it out. Yeah, I guess it maybe it should have worked differently, or maybe the plan was for it to work differently. I'm not sure. It's something that we didn't anticipate spending.
I think if I remember correctly, that the former city manager was offering those buyouts to several people, and some people decided to do it and some did not. So that may be the difference there.
May I ask about the bonuses and employee recognition? 40,000? Exactly what is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Under administrative support,
Oh, okay, up above.
third one down.
The employees were given a $250 Christmas bonus, and we had budgeted $50 an employee.
Every
And
employee?
we, mhm.
If I could ask,
Go ahead.
just because I don't know, I think employees deserve bonuses first and foremost, so I'm putting that out there. But why did it go from 50 to 250? Just from my own understanding.
I'll be glad to speak up for that one. While I did not agree with every decision the former city manager made, obviously the employees had been working very, very long hours, and so had the mayor. I didn't get a bonus though, but we had. I know I was there and I saw them, and 18 hours was not uncommon, and that was from department heads all the way to the lowest paid employee. They all worked unbelievable hours and kept the city together, and it was Christmas time. Many of the employees were still living out of cars. They had nothing for their families, and I thought it was the right thing to do, and I agreed with the city manager, and we went forward.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I too, it had to be there. I mean, well, you were during Michael, but it was a morale boost for the employees to get that money. I mean, they were beat down and needed it.
Sure. Like I said, not opposed to bonuses. I give them out all the time. So.
At the bottom of the page, capital outlay land. It's just not on the budget, but then it's there. 111,770.
That was the purchase of one of the houses.
I'm not seeing where we are. I'm sorry.
It's under administrative support all the way to.
Thank you. I see it now.
It's
That was the corner of, I think 1111 Ohio Avenue. We bought the piece of lot right next to our utilities, and we're gonna utilize that.
that one was in water. I think we bought. It was two that we bought. We bought a house.
This is the property across from on Sheffield Park, wasn't it? The house
I think
across from
so.
Sheffield.
I think so. I think it was behind.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere.
The prices are very similar.
I don't
Yes,
have
they
the
were.
address written down. Yeah, they were very close. But I put the the other purchase in the water department.
Okay.
because I thought that would be, a parking lot and sort of belong to that facility.
Other questions on page 9? Moving to page 10.
We got approximately $110,000 increase between the pension benefit general and pension benefits. I'm curious to know what happened there.
Yeah, I think some of that was due to a difference in estimate between what was in I guess the lady that does payroll does the rate estimate and changes it quarterly, and my estimate was a lot lower in the original budget document. So there was it was over budget in a lot of the departments, and I decided that we should leave it because we had so many, we had a good many people that did take advantage of the retiring early. We had a lot of retirees, and some payouts and a little bit of some of the drop payments, and I felt like it would probably be safer to just leave it in there.
Same issue with the firefighters, so that was probably the same reason for that one too.
Yeah.
Any other questions on page 10? Page 11.
The $260,000 for professional services. The increase to 260. I know that's because we increased permitting. More than likely, that's going to shift over to salaries since we're going to be most possibly hiring somebody if we do. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following the numbers where they may end up.
Yeah, EPCI received 75% of the permits that we collected. So when
Yes.
our revenues went up, then the EPCI payments went up accordingly.
Anything else on page 11?
Just want to make sure that I understand this one. Under protective inspection down there with life and health insurance, it went up 15,500. Is that correct?
Oh, we had an employee from a different department that is now working in protective. So we have 2 employees instead of 1, and for a for a short amount of time. For the end of the year we had an extra employee, and for health and life, I must be looking at something different than
It's
Under
right
customers.
underneath pension benefit.
$4,500.
It says 15,500.
Oh, that's for the salaries. It's because we had that additional employee helping with permits.
Okay. So that's what we paid in health and life insurance for that person.
Mm-hmm.
There were some
Somebody
additional
from the
employees.
library is now doing that. And it was just for, it's just been recently, so it's just for the end of the year.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, please.
If you look at most of the salary, the line items for salaries, health benefits, anything to do with an employee, you're going to see somewhat of either a decrease or an increase. Because right after the storm, there were many people, there was attrition, there were people that we had to find other places for them to work, so that where we needed the help the most. So there were people who were moved from department to department. And so that department may have picked up some of their benefits, may have picked up some of their salaries. And we are still in the process of some of those folks are still in place. And so anytime you see a little bit of difference there, that's because we did continue to maneuver people around because there was a hiring freeze, so we're not hiring people. So when someone left and we need something to take place, then we need an additional person, then we moved a person into another department in order for them to also have a job and get the job done within the city. So you'll see that either be up or down, and our reasoning is, we wanted the city to move forward. We want to make sure that people still had jobs during this time, and that it was really, really all about trying to save money in terms of hiring other folks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about that or comments about the acting city manager's comments? Okay, let's move on to page 12. So no questions on page 12. We'll move on to 13. I'm sorry,
The street
Commissioner
paving,
Perna, go ahead.
on there, just above vehicles, right at the very end.
Okay, under street
There's
paving.
a difference there, 160.
160 was for the roundabout, Colorado roundabout, and I think the engineering for that has been done, but I think we decided we probably wouldn't be able to get to that by the end of September.
Right
that
about,
was-
right there at the front of the country club there.
Is that,
Okay.
and the other was an additional Porter Park work, some paving at Porter Park.
Are there other questions on page 12? And moving on to page 13.
The general salaries, the difference of 158 is the moving around.
Yes, that would be correct. We still have our library services in terms of the specialists in the library, but they were moved to different departments because right now we don't have a library open.
Same thing with community service down there.
We don't have the recreation
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
programs that we had.
Okay, moving on to page 14. Just slow me down if I get ahead of anyone.
The R&M on the parks, the additional 165,000. That pre-Michael, post-Michael? And if it's post-Michael, why is it not something we can ask for reimbursement for?
It could be the concession stand, or something to do with the. It could have been something that we were going to had planned to do that. I'll have to look at it specifically, but it could be something that we had planned to do that didn't have anything to do with the storm.
So did we steal 428?
Which one is which?
Did we do that as a 428?
We haven't decided on 428s and 406s at this
Oh, we
point.
haven't.
We're still debating which projects are which. But I think that most of us, if I could speak, I think that everyone in these discussions with FEMA tend to be leaning to the 428s because of lack of restrictions. But
And Commissioner, I'm just not sure about that R&M parts. Could be a couple of things, but I can definitely check on that and make sure.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has a question about page 14? Okay, moving on to page 15 then. Then moving on to page 16. This will be the CRA fund and expenditures. And then we're moving to page 17 and 18, which is disaster recovery fund and disaster recovery expenditures.
That number doesn't scare anybody.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry, if that number doesn't scare anybody,
Which number are we referring to?
70,256,000. That just boggles my mind.
But keeping in mind, if I can make your mind feel better, because I have been feeling a lot better recently. First of all, Lynn Haven is the only city, the only city, including the county, that has not borrowed any money up until this point. We've got a line of credit, which is not quite the same as taking out a loan with interest until you actually use the money. And then we've not yet taken out the bonds, but we are looking at the bonds. With the FEMA reimbursements, as they are beginning to come now, there is a possibility that we can cycle through as this money comes in, pay those debts, get the next portion, obligate that money, and I think you're going to see Lynn Haven making a really, really good recovery from this with this total bill. So I have an optimistic eye on this that I did not have in December.
I agree, and on my 100%, I agree with that. I think that it's gonna be very good for all of us at the end of the day. You know, the one thing that about this whole budget that's unsettling to me, and it should, I'm sure it is to you because you're an accountant, so you like things to match up and to the penny, or you should, right? Is the fact that everything is so fluid still. That bothers me. And I know it's out of everyone's control. It's because of the circumstances. But it gives me an uneasy feeling, you know, knowing that every number on here could be different in 5 weeks.
Well, and it's significantly different. I mean, this budget amendment is pretty huge. I mean, usually it would be much smaller.
I'm just putting that out there. You know, it's
Yeah, it is.
a lot of moving parts
Changing.
here.
I know the numbers are big and there's a lot of money when you're looking at it, and there's money coming in, but at the end of the day, we're gonna end up having to pay for something, aren't we? We're gonna end up.
I'm not sure. I have an optimistic eye on it. There are so many things that can happen. So many good things have happened since this all started. Back in December, those who were present at the commission meeting may have heard me shouting, I wanted to fire all the haulers in December and say, we'll clean it up ourselves. I mean, that's how scared I was about how the bills were mounting. And, but I just see us in a very good place in this city. The debt, is, you know, when you look at the numbers, it is staggering when you look at it. But at the same point, this is going to continue to come in pieces, and our pieces so far have been the largest ones recovered. So I feel
How
pretty
well
good
are
about
we
that.
poised if there is a variance? Like, what are our reserves and all our reserve funds?
Our reserve funds do not look anything like they did in September. Okay, they don't look anything like that. But at the same point, we didn't deplete reserves and borrow money and borrow more money. We still have borrowed money until this week. So I think we're in a good place. I do want to, go ahead. Please go ahead, Commissioner Aldrich, before I make my other comment. Please do. Okay. I did want to make one more comment about the budget. And, I think that we could have had more information for you. And as I have been for the last 4.5 years, have been asking for a different accounting firm for the city because the city has had the same accounting firm for over 2 decades. And best accounting practices say that you have a different accounting firm at least every 5 years, just for different sets of eyes on your books. And so we still have the same one. And the one that we have I will just spit it out there, is considerably unhappy with this mayor because I've been calling for a new firm for a long time. And so right now we're still waiting on our audit from them. They do not have to give it to us until June the 30th. That's the date, that's the drop dead give it to us date. But they are aware that we need it. They are aware that we need to make these numbers more hard. And I'm not throwing any accusations out there, but if I were a guessing person, I would think they're holding it back because they're angry at me. But we will eventually get that. That's going to help firm up things a little bit for us. It's going to help us in our pursuit of the bonds. And so that RFQ for, we voted before the storm to put out an RFQ for either keeping the same firm if they should decide to bid or another firm. But I just wanted to, I can't say it anywhere else, so I'm saying it here with all of you, that they have not been very cooperative with us for the last few weeks. They've asked for a lot of information they really didn't need, and they've asked for lots of information in small pieces, and the accounting department and the city employees have been very diligent and tried to get this in as good a shape as possible, but they have not had a lot of support from them. So I just wanted to say that. Did you have something else? Okay.
Thank you. Do we have that on the agenda, or have we brought that up without any?
Yes, we have. Before the storm, we did vote to put out an RFQ for auditing services, and that will be going out in July. So. Are there other questions from the board?
No, I am going to go ahead.
No, go ahead. This is a workshop.
So this line of credit, that Hancock just approved for us, the $5 million, right? And maybe Ms. Vicky can help me out on this as well. When we're paying out of that line of credit, we're getting charged interest on the amount spent, not just the line itself, correct?
I think it's
Right. Okay, making sure I'm understanding
6.5
correctly.
on the balance. That's something that's due. I think that-
Okay. Well, so are we moving money back and forth? I guess is my question. Are we moving money out of our general fund when it's there? An example, when the money throughout the times of the month where the money is higher than lower. Okay. Are we moving money back over to the line of credit to save ourselves the interest, at least on the weekends, or are we holding it all and just paying it? And it's just a question. I'm not throwing any.
We've only had the line of credit 4 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we just got it, and I think we're paying out debris haulers with the money immediately.
I
So
should know if we're moving it. It's 8 days interest every month.
yeah, so we're not. I don't think we're gonna have much of anything left after we pay
I got you.
from
we'll be talking about that in the meeting too. That's smart.
Just for the record, the line of credit's $2.5 million, not $5 million.
The line of credit is $5 million, but we've taken out 2.5.
Oh. Okay, I stand corrected.
Does that need to be changed? Because I think Vicky told me 2.5, and I saw it was 5, and I thought, well, and I think I had changed it to 5, and then I talked to Vicky again, and changed it back to 2.5. So I'm not sure.
That's all
If
we've
I have the
taken
right,
out.
right
Yeah,
one in there.
yeah. That's all we've taken out. It's
Okay.
2.5.
And that's plan right now.
And we have not yet spent the 2.5. The city manager and I will be bringing that before you this afternoon.
That's correct. And of course, this has a 30 million bond issue in the budget that we haven't totally worked out the details on how much we're borrowing and what the issuance cost and what all of that is going to be exactly. So this is definitely in progress.
Okay, shall we look at page 19? Water fund, water expenditures. No questions on page 19? Moving to page 20. Moving to page 21.
Sewer revenue and tap fees,
If you could take us to the line item, Commissioner Kernan.
under, permits and fees, sewer revenue and tap fees.
The sewer revenue was calculated by using the revenue billed for April and taking the actual plus 5 months of the revenue billed for the rest, April for the rest of the year. So, I just estimated what our revenue was likely to be for the rest of the year. We took a pretty good hit with the sewer revenues. The impact fees, they're down in all the categories. I think that's because instead of having new building, we now are having mostly repairs. I think instead of starting new projects, that most everybody's repairing the old ones.
Are there other questions on page 21? On page 22?
Was there a project for the expansion of the wastewater?
That has been a discussion.
Just in discussion.
Other questions on page 22? On page 23?
Does that mean we spent nothing? DOT maintenance contract. There's $750,000 on the line. Actual zero. Like the fourth line down on the stormwater
Amendment to
amendment.
bring it into the budget.
That was actually, we had 750 budgeted originally, we've actually spent 746,000. And we added 250 to the budget. We added 250 to the revenue budget also.
Other questions on page 23? And then moving to the final page, 24, the sanitation fund. Okay, I think we look like we may have gotten through it with 3 minutes to spare. So at this time, we still have 3 minutes before the meeting, and I think that would not be enough time to ask for questions from the public. So what I would like to do, I hope it will suffice, is that during the public commentary, I would increase the time to 5 minutes per person if you're asking questions about the budget, so that you can get in questions that you would like to ask. And then if the time still does not give you opportunity, of course, you can always come and talk to us privately or bring it up at the next meeting. And generally, if you know me, you know that during a workshop that I do allow time for public comment on the line items, but today it would not have given us enough time to get through it with the new board members. So I do offer that apology to those of you I know that like to participate. And so during the regular commission meeting, I will extend the time for speaking if you have questions about the budget. So thank you, and we'll take a 2-minute break before we start.